So we'll talk about that towards the end of the session. So I am Alana Burke. I work at Amazy.io doing documentation, training, and developer advocacy. I am also on Drupal diversity and inclusion, and I didn't put it on here, but I'm also on the community working group. You can find me on Twitter and Drupal.org at aburke626, and on the Drupal Slack, I'm Alana Burke. And my pronouns are she, her. Just a reminder that everyone is expected to abide by the DrupalCon Code of Conduct. And you can email conduct@association.drupal.org. I have also done Code of Conduct training and am a so if anything happens and you want someone that you feel more comfortable talking to, you can always contact me. So here we go, part 1. So why are we holding a workshop for underrepresented folks in Drupal? Well, there's a lot of reasons. A disproportionate number of the speakers at Drupal events and conferences and tech events in general look alike background. So that means the speakers do not represent everyone sitting in the audience. Folks from marginalized and underrepresented groups may feel like they don't belong there, but our community does have diversity. And we have folks from a wide range of backgrounds with a wide range of knowledge that they want to share so that everyone can feel included. You know, because Drupal is open source, all sorts of people use it in all sorts of ways. So we want to have a more fair representation in the people who are speaking. Drupal is also shaped by those who speak about it. You know, many of the people who become speakers gain clout and respect in the Drupal community, and they become the people who shape Drupal. So marginalized and underrepresented folks, by the nature of having had different life experiences, would approach these problems differently. Every developer's point of view is different, and a developer's point of view is different from a user's point of view. And so we have experiences that aren't necessarily being shared right now. So when we bring more diversity to the podium, there's a better chance of bringing in folks who are straddling several roles and thus creating unique things with unique perspectives. Power users who use Drupal in interesting ways, front-end developers, business people who use distributions to make specific kinds of sites, to do wild things with typography, people who run businesses with Drupal. There's so many different things that we want to make sure that we are bringing to the forefront. And also, when people see themselves represented on stage, it gives more people confidence and helps them feel like they belong there. So they feel less marginalized and less underrepresented. And then finally, we want to help create more opportunities for marginalized and underrepresented groups. Leadership positions, public speaking is a doorway to all of these things. I am super passionate about that because that is how my career in Drupal really took off. You know, I had a nice, steady, quiet career as a developer. And when I started talking and started really getting involved in the community, that's when, you know, my career took off. People started to know who I was. People wanted to talk to me. People wanted to interview me. And, you know, the have gotten in the past couple of years have all been, I don't want to say just because I am a speaker, but I would not have gotten them if I were not speaking on a platform of this size. So these are things I want you to think about. If you have not spoken, and I'm assuming that many of you are here because you have not spoken, what's holding you back? What are some things that you're worried about? Why haven't you talked at a meetup or a local Drupal event, a Drupal camp, a DrupalCon, or other tech events? A lot of the terminology in this is going to be around Drupal camp and DrupalCon, but of course this applies to all events. And if you've talked, but maybe you only talked once, why didn't you do it again? Think about those things so that maybe we can fix them. And why do you want to speak? There are so many reasons to become a You can be seen as an authority in your field, share your knowledge with others, build your confidence, give back to the community, meet people, be part of the community. One day, eventually, we will travel again. You can learn at conferences by going to the other sessions. Speaking can be really fun. It's rewarding. You get a feeling of accomplishment. Like we mentioned, it builds your career. And you can be people in marginalized and other underrepresented groups. So there are a lot of myths about what we think a speaker is versus what they actually are. And everyone has for not speaking in public, especially at tech events. But a lot of these are based on myths that we can dispel or concerns that we can address. So myth number 1, I'm not an expert. That's okay. Expert. Everyone has a different idea of what expert means. Nobody knows everything, and everyone has something to learn. You could know more about your topic. You could find out that you have knowledge where your audience does not. There are things you do with Drupal all the time that other people don't, that makes you an expert in their eyes. Even if your audience has knowledge about the same topic, they're not going to frame that knowledge the same way. Something to learn from you. It's also possible that you feel you only have a little bit of knowledge about a topic, but it's still more than many people in the audience who are happy to learn from you. You're probably more of an expert than you think you are. A lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. This is the psychological phenomenon where you feel like you are an imposter. You think you don't really have the knowledge or the skills to be here, but you've managed to fool everyone, and soon they'll find out. Imposter syndrome, and you're not alone. Number 2, people will ask questions I can't answer, and I will look like a fool. This is usually one of my biggest fears. Yes, people very well may ask questions you can't answer, but that's okay. Your audience understands that not everyone knows everything, and it can be hard to think on your feet. If you don't know the answer, there are several things you can do. You can ask if anyone in the audience has the answer. You can tell them you will look up the answer and get back to them. Tell them you'll post it on Twitter or on your website later. Sometimes people ask questions that are off topic, or this is a little more of a comment than a question. You can tell them it's off topic and you'd be happy to discuss it later. It's also okay to say, I don't know. Highly of you if you admit that you don't know than if you try to make up an answer. We're going to go into these in detail later when we talk in part 3 about how to handle question and answer sessions. I'm too nervous to speak. Your audience gets that too. After all, most of them are sitting in the seats and not up at the podium, so most of them didn't have the bravery to speak. First of all, practice, practice, practice. The more you practice in front of pets, family, friends, the mirror, small audiences, the less nervous you will be. Trust me, my cats, dog, and guinea pigs have heard most of my DrupalCon talks so many times they could probably get hired as Drupal developers. But if you're still nervous, that's okay. Everyone gets nervous in front of audiences, and it's just part of being human. Keep in mind that your audience is on your side. It's okay to admit that you're nervous. People will be sympathetic. I'm up here speaking and I haven't died yet. Making a joke can help, dispel the nervous energy in the room. I don't want to tell you to think about the worst thing that could happen or anything, but if you think about something that you're scared of happening, think about, okay, so what happens then? At the first virtual conference I presented at, that was at Drupal Camp, New Jersey, it went wrong in the middle of me talking. And because it went wrong, I couldn't hear anyone who was trying to tell me. And of course I had all of my notifications turned off, everything, because I was presenting like a conscientious presenter. So they were slacking me and texting me and I didn't get any of it. So they finally had to shut down the session to get my attention. And then I went to Slack and I was like, oh, what happened? And they're like, oh, we haven't been able to hear you for the last 5 minutes. And I was just like, oh no, well, let's go on with it. And the audience was so chill and they were just like, oh, here's the slide we lost you on. And we just went on with it. And like, that's literally the worst thing that can happen during a virtual presentation, right? Like you have audio and video issues, and it happened and we went on and nobody cared. So sometimes the worst case is no big deal at all. Myth number 4, I have failed if everyone in the audience isn't totally engaged. This isn't true at all. Again, when we go back to in-person conferences at someday, you will look out at the audience and it'll look like everyone is bored. That's fine. Most of them probably aren't as bored as they look. Audiences generally sit with neutral faces. So just because they're looking at their phones and they're not smiling and nodding and cheering, it doesn't mean that they're not engaged. They might be tweeting about it or telling a colleague about it or talking on Slack about it. That's really common. And guess what? Your talk might not be for everyone, but they didn't leave the room, so they're still there. And you can't connect with everyone. So just be happy. Don't take it personally. And myth number 5, a talk followed by a Q&A is the only format I can use to share my knowledge. No, there are plenty of other ways to share your expertise. You could lead a group discussion, a workshop, put together a training. You could do lightning talks if the event offers an opportunity for that. Those are usually about 10 minutes. This is a great format if you're nervous because it's okay to talk fast and it's over quickly. When we were planning for Minneapolis, we were actually going to do that. We were going to have this training in its full official form. And then this was going to be early in the week. And then later in the week, we were going to have a time that was going to be split up into lightning talks for people to just give a very quick talk that they had planned during the training. So hopefully that's something we can do at a later DrupalCon. But that's a way to just get into talking. The first talk I ever gave was a lightning talk. You know, if you can talk for 5 or 10 minutes, you can do it. Anyone can talk for 5 minutes. So let's dig into finding a topic. So we had just discussed and how a session with a Q&A is not the only way to give a talk. You know, a lot of talks are these big how-to brain dump sessions. You know, how to make an extension might be someone walking through how to make it, maybe live coding, and at the end there are questions. We're really, really used to this in tech. This isn't necessarily the best way to impart information. People often walk away feeling overwhelmed and not remembering anything that they learned. There are other talks that promote better learning. You know, talking into something, for example, means that other people can learn how to learn. So here's some of the various talk formats. The how-to is the standard way that tech talks happen. A discussion is where you're the facilitator on a topic and the audience discusses it together. A panel is where multiple people answer questions on the same topic. Story-based, this could be how you learned something, mistakes you made, or any. I really enjoy talks like that. A case study is the story of how you created one thing in particular. And a workshop is a hands-on learning experiences where people bring their laptops and create a thing as you go. And a talk doesn't ever have to be one person. Talks with 2 or 3 people can be really engaging. If you get more than 5 people, it starts to be a little too much. Okay, so it looks like So the first thing that I want everyone to do is to brainstorm as many topic ideas as you can in 15 minutes. We might just do 10. We're not looking for perfect or even good ideas. The idea is to just get them out. Good, bad, ugly. See if you can get even 30 or 40 ideas. Anything that comes to mind. Just write them down. So this is going to help. I don't know what to talk about. I don't know enough about anything to give a talk. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm going to start asking you some questions after I give you a couple minutes to get going. You can write, draw, do mind maps, anything that helps you just get some things out on paper. And I promise that once you start writing, more things will come to you. This is my favorite part of this training. So start thinking and start writing down some topics. Okay. Oh no. Sorry, I'm trying to fix this dark mode and it's making my my presenter view hard to see. Okay. Here's some ideas that you might want to think about. What got you into Drupal? What keeps you in Drupal? What do you love about Drupal? What do you want to learn next? What was the first time you created a custom theme or wrote a module or extension? What was your biggest challenge in Drupal in the last year or two? What was the last thing you learned? How did you learn it? What was the biggest challenge you've ever had with Drupal? How did you overcome it? What are you most passionate about when it comes to Drupal? What sorts of things do you love sharing with others about Drupal? What question about Drupal do you get asked most by clients, friends, and family? Make a list of. That's also a good way to overcome the idea of not being an expert. Some people use this as their strategy for speaking. They pick something they want to learn and they set themselves to it by submitting a session about it. And if the session gets accepted, then they have to learn it to write the talk. It's a little risky, but it works out. What's your favorite module? What's a cool thing you've created? What resources? What are some cool tricks you use all the time? What could you talk about without slides? And of course, anything we didn't ask that you wish we had asked here. So I'm going to give you 5 to think up some topics, and feel free to talk in the chat or suggest your topics or share your topics in the chat. Foster level. I love that. That's a great topic. I don't know either. I haven't spent enough time in the chat to figure out all the formatting. Command, control, or yes. Oh, and media module and D9, combining with other modules, responsive image and image crop, especially. Yeah, that would definitely be a good topic. Because that is a tough one to figure out. There is so much. I know that's one, and not necessarily in Drupal 9, but in Drupal 8 that can trip me up because there is so much. It works so well when you get it working, but there is so much to configure that it can be tricky. I would love to see a session on that. And I'm not even a developer anymore. All right, a couple more minutes. Oh, a talk about what a CMS is. That is a great beginner talk. And a lot of people, take it for granted that other folks are going to know what that is, and they do not. Yeah, I think sometimes a lot of us forget that beginner talks are fantastic, and they get requested sometimes. And those of us who've been, in our don't give beginner talks anymore, and that knowledge sometimes doesn't get out there. And but it's also a great thing for beginners to do, is to share their knowledge. So this is one of the reasons, another reason for us to give this training and to get more people into speaking, is everyone is at a level to give talks. Yeah, anyone else want to share? Oh, Drupal glossary terms and common jargon. Yeah, I have actually seen that one suggested in like lists of wished for talks. I think this year the speaker team we did sort of like a spreadsheet of talks we would sure that one was on there. Anatomy of a Drupal module, Drupal 7 versus 8 and 9, absolutely. A lot of people are still moving from Drupal 7. Okay, well, that's been 10 minutes, and we can share more of these afterwards, so I'm going to move on. Because now you've got some good, bad, and ugly ideas, and we're going to help you pick out a couple of topics from your list that you think benefit questions. And you might also come up with some new answers that weren't in your original list. So that's fine too. Of course, just write them down. And if you don't have anything for these, that's fine. Just skip them. So for a story-based talk, pick 2 topics that you don't know a lot about, but you've had success with. So something you could narrate a story about. Like, I don't know much about. I made one for custom content types. So the idea being that you could share your journey about how this came to be, but you're not an expert module maker. And don't worry, I'm going to be sharing a document with all of this afterwards. And then next, for a panel or discussion, pick 2 topics that you may not know much about, but that you would have good questions for. So this could be for moderating a panel or leading a discussion. Drupal and passive income. Oh, that's interesting. I'd love to know what you're thinking about there. Sometimes the only tricky thing with a panel is finding the right people for it. So if you're not familiar with the topic at all, you just may finding the people to speak on it if you aren't even familiar with who would know what to talk about. So that is just the one caveat, and not to ever discourage anyone, but just the one caveat sometimes to panels and discussions. So next, your general how-to presentation. So 2 topics that you are confident about and could lead a how-to presentation. So I think some of the ones that we've talked about here, that's pretty straightforward, and that's a great how-to presentation. Media module in D9, that could be a how-to presentation. Anatomy of a Drupal module, that could also be a how-to presentation. Those would, I'm not locking those into these formats, just and a case study. 2 topics that you've successfully worked on that you feel you could do. I think a lot of case studies sort of get locked into just like website showcases, and they don't have to be that way. I'm pretty sure one of the talks, one of the sessions at DrupalCon, and sorry, sometimes I don't remember them all because the ones that we selected originally didn't all make it to DrupalCon. But I think one of them is about how Drupal Camp Colorado went virtual. Or maybe it was just about creating a successful event. There's one about one going virtual and one about making a successful event. But like those are great ideas for case studies. Like that's a case study, like how we did this. So I think those can be really, really interesting. Like this, pick 2 topics that you think you could teach to others in a hands-on manner. Workshops can sometimes, they generally need a little more time, but I think they can benefit in ways that a how-to doesn't, where, you know, you're really making sure that people are hearing what you're saying and they're absorbing what you're saying and they're getting, you know, the real benefit out of it. So if you're thinking about doing something really technical and you really want people to absorb it and learn from it, think about if there's room for that to be a workshop. And now go through your topic list and just pick 2 of the subjects in your topic list that are your favorite, the ones that just most want to give. Oh, and someone suggested Intro to Render, Arrays, and Twig. That is a good one. I actually, a few years ago, someone gave a good talk on that. Which doesn't mean someone can't give another great talk on it. Also, that was for, I guess it was D7 into D8. But D8 into D9 and now D10 could certainly use an update. And that's another thing, when you're getting to the point of submitting, I suggest to people that you look through the last couple of years of the event and see what people have submitted. Only because you don't want to submit the exact same thing that someone has submitted. Totally fine if it's, you know, a similar take on a similar subject. But so that someone who's been on a as a track chair, I generally don't want things that are almost exactly the same talk year after year. So I'd like someone to, you know, put a different spin on it, have a different take, you know, do something a little different. You know, if the talk is in a different format, that's definitely going to be something I would look at. So I do appreciate it if people go ahead and just take a little time, look through the list of topics and make sure, you know, differentiated theirs. I totally appreciate it when people have, you know, people are going to have some of the similar expertise. We have to, as developers especially, have to work on a lot of the same things. But do make the effort to make sure that you're not trying to present the same content as someone did in a previous year at the same. right, so hopefully now you have a list of some possible topics that you can move forward with. Is the lines above, both as the topic and the format, that you are especially passionate about, that you are just thinking, I really want to give this talk, I want to write this session, this is my topic. If there is, I would love for you to share that in the chat. And if not, that's okay. We're going to keep working. We're going to try and further refine your topics. So we're going to apply who, what, why, how, when, and where. So say you have a favorite module and someone was talking about the media module. So we could say, who is the media module for? What does the media module do? Why was it created? How does it work? When would you use it? So asking can help us, think a little more deeply about your topic. If you were just thinking like, oh, I want to do something about the media module, but now you could think a little more deeply about it and thinking like, oh, like we had over here, the media module and responsive images in Drupal 8 and Drupal 9. Better topic than just the media module. So think through the who, what, how, why, when of your topic. Oh, someone suggested using Jenkins with Drupal and Drush. Yeah, that's a great one. People use Jenkins for all kinds of things, and integrating it, continuous integration, DevOps, that's a great, absolutely great topic. Does anyone else want to share theirs? Oh, it's okay that you're late. I'm going to share the document with everything we went over. And I can also share the slides from the first part of this as well. I'll just have to save them out. And we're also going to have a workshop after this if anyone wants to continue working on their topics. So hopefully everyone has some thoughts about their topics, an idea about their topic. So your official homework for tomorrow is to pick a topic, because we're going to start developing your talk tomorrow. So ideally you'll have a topic that you'll actually want to work on. If not, you'll just have to use a topic, any topic, but ideally you'll start working on a session that you will actually use at some point. So I have a doc for your homework in the chat here. So that is text version of what we covered today. So you can use that to go through and go over what we did and pick a topic. And then you can join us in our working session. I'm just going to switch over right after this over to, because normally we would work through this as a group, and we want to give everyone that opportunity. You can also chat, actually share your screen and chat. If you have questions and want to talk through things, we can make it much more interactive. I want to give everyone that opportunity to do that. And we'll just meet for about an hour, and then we'll have the next session tomorrow. We're in the exhibit hall. Let me see if I can grab the link to our booth. No, I don't have it offhand, but it is right in the exhibit hall at the bottom. Oh, thank you, Nicole. So that's the link to our booth. And that is the feedback survey, which I have on my next slide here. So thank you for posting that, Melissa. And I would also like to mention that Contrib Day is on Friday. We do have a group for that, and I'm going to post that right in here. We are going to work on all kinds of issues. We're happy to help you with your talks if that's what you want to do. We haven't posted a ton on our contrib. We do have a link to some of our issues. We're still figuring out exactly what we want to work on, but we will be hanging out, working on stuff, hanging out as a group to do Drupal things. So you are more than welcome to join us. And then tomorrow is part 2 at the same time here. And we will start with actually writing our pitch. So I do have a few moments for questions if anyone wants to ask them here before session, before we move over to the informal booth. Oh, thank you. We have been trying to do as much diversity and inclusion work as we can over the past several years. I'm glad to see the community engaging more in it and hearing more about it at every DrupalCon. When I first started in Drupal, these were not words that you heard at DrupalCon. So it's so great to not just be doing this work, but also to have all of you engaging with it. That makes me feel great. And Nicole, I'm glad you're motivated. And because I work with you, I can bug you and make sure that you submit to an event. Anything else? We have a few more minutes. In part 3, no, you're not actually going to give a talk. I don't have all of it right in front of me right now, but in part 3, we're mostly going to go over writing your bio and some tips about being a better speaker, writing better slides, how to handle question and answer, and things like that. So the next part of the talk is the sort of meat of writing the talk, writing your pitch, writing your title, outlining your talk and writing it. And then part 3 is more about giving the talk. So in the time that we do have to stuff tomorrow, I would love for all of you to share your titles and pitches and outlines as you write them or in the working session, but you won't actually be giving your talk. And of course, you don't have to share if you don't want to. Anything else? Okay, well, it seems like some folks have left and no one has any questions, and we're just about at time. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Oh, wait, we've got someone. Oh, thank you, Faye. I'm glad that this is making it easier. People really are so much kinder than you think when you're a speaker, and no one is are there jerks out there? Sure, absolutely. But the experiences of people, asking you something you can't answer, or, of anyone at DrupalCon being purposefully mean to anyone or being purposefully rude to a speaker. And obviously, if that happened, it would be dealt with extremely swiftly. But most of the time in the audience, people are just rooting for people. I mean, if you're worried about someone asking you a question you can't answer, think about, like, if you asked Dries a question, if Dries got asked a question about something in Drupal and he couldn't answer it, like, you wouldn't think he was an idiot. You would just know that Drupal gets worked on by, he didn't actually, he probably didn't work on that part of it, So there are, yeah, it's not as scary being a speaker as you think it is. So hopefully you'll all get a chance to give talks at some point, starting in a smaller environment like a camp or a meetup, and go from there. All right, well, let's call it a day and head on over to the booth. And I'll be over there to present in, turn on my camera and stuff in just a couple of minutes. So thank you all.